Okay, so let's get this conversation going. Well, first of all, I'm Paula. I am a single mother. I became a mother at 45 years old. My daughter's now 5 years old. So you do the math on how old I am. And yeah, so the question is, how did I get here? I ask myself that at least 3 times a week. Like, there'll be something that's going on with my daughter, and I just have this meltdown moment, and I'm like, how did I get here? What happened? Because let's say 6 years ago, I was a very single woman. I'm still single, but I'm very much alone. I lived alone. I had 2 cats. I still have those 2 cats. My focus was my career, running. I was running marathons at that time. And everything was really about me, and that was really the problem. Where I realized I couldn't stand it anymore. And at 38, I had one of these wake-up moments where it's like, why am I single? And the problem is that I never made marriage a priority. Growing up, I grew up with 2 parents. My parents were married until death. My mother died 6 years ago. My father died 6 months ago. They were married for 52 years. Was it a good marriage? As far as most people would consider, there was never infidelity. There was never any type of physical abuse. There was never. But I think I looked at my parents' marriage and sort of felt like that just wasn't what I wanted. I think, and it was not a conscious decision. It was not a conscious decision. It just sort of happened. I didn't pay any attention to it. At this point in my life, I can look back and I analyze, and I'm like, well, why haven't I gotten married? And I think a lot of it has to do with my perception of what marriage was. So I really spent life until about age 38 not really focusing on that. But at 38, there was something that clicked in my head, and maybe it was looking at 40, when I realized, oh my gosh, I'm 38. Doctors are saying that if I were to have a child now, it's considered a high-risk pregnancy because I'm approaching 40. So at 38, I started really searching for a husband. I did the dating sites. I dated men through work that I'd met at events. I was out there, and the reality was that at 38, if I was dating men my age or older, and often they were older, they'd had kids, already. They didn't want to start all over, or they just were not father material. So at about 41, I decided, okay, it's over then. I actually went into Babies R Us. I had a goodbye ceremony in my head. I went in, I looked at the cribs, I looked at the strollers, I looked at all of them and said, goodbye, this isn't going to happen. I'm moving on, That lasted all of maybe 6 months, if that. And I tried to convince myself. I would hear kids crying, and I would say to myself, oh, how worrisome, or whatever that is. Oh, I'm glad that's not me. But in my heart of hearts, I knew I was lying to myself. And I can't really pinpoint when it happened, but one day my heart just opened up and I said, no, I want to be a mother. How do I do this? I've not been able to find a mate. How do I go about it? And I just sort of looked around, and I think the media, I was in LA at the time, the media, things around me, just sort of said, well, maybe you can do this by yourself. So I started researching that. I went to Single Mothers by Choice meetings through Meetup, and just educated myself on really what it would take to be a single mother, because I didn't grow up in that environment. And I realized it's not going to be easy, but I can do this. So then the question became, how are you going to do it? There's adoption, and then there is to have the child myself. Now, my first my first thought was to have the child on my own. And I actually researched it. I went to sperm bank sites. I looked all over. There were men who were willing to donate. There were donations for fees. Of course, there was the IVF. You know, I had to consider health risks with each one of them. I decided that the best way and the safest way was through the sperm bank in Los Angeles. So I even spent time on their site, just sort of reading the profiles of prospective fathers. I was really on this. I was looking at herbs that I could take to increase my chances of getting pregnant at my age. And I was really on that path. But I also had in the back of my mind adoption. I didn't talk to anyone about the IVF and the donor situation. I did talk to my mother and family about adoption. I continued to do my research, was starting to really try to figure out the planning, and out of nowhere, my mother died of a heart attack. Just fell over, gone. And it changed my world. It changed how I saw the world. It changed my support system. The reality is that I was in California by myself. I had no family. I had friends, but I had no family. My fear was that, wow, if I do this by myself and there's no father, this isn't like you have a boyfriend or a mate and you all decide to have a child. This is a donor, so you're really 100% by yourself. So my fear was that if I decided to do this by myself and I had medical issues, what was I going to do about work? Because as a single mother, I needed my job, and I'd been with my job for years. And it was like, I'm sure they would try to work with me, even once the baby was here, if there were problems. Acknowledging that I was over 40, what type of support system would I have? Friends can only help so much. I realized that really, with my mom gone, because my thought had been, well, if I were to get to that level of distress with the pregnancy, my mom would fly out, she'd live with me, and she'd take care of me, and she'd take care of the baby, and everything would be fine. You know, we're cool. Initially, there would be some shock that Paula is pregnant and not married, but I knew she'd get over it, and my father would get over it, and everyone would get over it. So her death just swept that entire concept to the side. So then for a month or two, she died in February of 2010. For a month or two, I really just thought, well, maybe we'll just drop the whole being a mother thing again. But by May, June, I was back on, but I want to be a mother. This is what I've wanted since I was a little kid. When I was a little girl, I used to get my parents would get Ebony magazine. And I would sit on the floor and flip through the pages and see the kids and be like, that's what my little girl's going to look like. That's what my son's going to look like. I mean, it was something that was in my heart and my spirit and my soul since I was a small child. And I was going to have to let it go. Now, there are a lot of things that I've had to let go. Goals, dreams, like anyone else. You know, you sort of outgrow some things, or you realize, I'm just not suited for that. And you let it go. But nowhere did I see that I was not suited to be a mother. You know, in my heart of hearts, I just knew I had a wonderful mother, and she wasn't perfect, but she was a wonderful mother, and I knew I could also be the same. So I wanted this. So, of course, you know, you can sort of squash things down for a little bit, but if it's really meant to be and it's what you want, it's going to keep rising to the top. So, of course, it rose to the top again. So at that point, I said, okay, I am not going to have this child. And at that point, I was 43 years old. But what I will do is I will look into adoption. So in August of 2010, I went to an information meeting on the foster care system in Los Angeles. And by November, I was signed up to take the class, which was PS Math. It was a really good education on the state of many of the children who end up in the foster care system. And after completing that course to their satisfaction, I was then required to have a home study. I had the home study approved, and there was a final part where there was a different social worker who had to come out to my home and inspect it to make sure that, you know, things were safe, all of that. And then I sat for months. When I started the PSMAP class, I wanted a child between the ages of 3 and 5. And I said 3 and 5 because I knew my nature, that I'd not really had children around me a whole lot, not small children. And I wanted the child to be potty trained, and I wanted the child to be able to tell me that she was hungry. I also chose a female versus a male. My thought then was that I would adopt a female because I thought it would be easier. Now I'm told, and I can sort of get, that boys are a lot easier than girls. And I'm seeing with this girl, she's all tomboy, but she is girl, and she comes after you like a girl. Like, why are you wearing that? I hope you're not going to go out like that. She told me my hair, and this is not my normal look. She's like, oh, you got that old lady hair look. She's 5, you know? So I don't think I would get that from a boy. I don't know, but my guess is that I probably wouldn't. He would probably just say, I don't like your hair. But anyway, so, but the things that I marked off that I said I couldn't deal with, and was schizophrenia, HIV, AIDS, Down syndrome, and I think that was it. They had a list of, you know, things, and I was just like, I can deal with that. I can deal with, said I could deal with ADHD, and I guess God just, you know, said, oh, you can deal with ADHD? All right. Boom, there she is, you know. But yeah, so, you know, I just sort of checked off. So the first call that I got, I think this baby was about a year old and had been exposed to HIV. The very thing that I said, I think, you know, when basically a child comes into the system and they're looking for the foster parents out there who will, it's like dialing for dollars, you know, it falls on this social worker's desk and they start dialing. And I don't think they necessarily really open up your file and look at what you've said. They just dial for dollars. So basically, long story short, I called her back and I said, no. Okay. Months went by, and then I got another call, and there's a child available, and it was a little girl. I don't remember what the details were. Clearly it didn't happen because I don't remember. And he said, you know, let me warn you, you are a single woman. You are competing with 2 married couples. So she said it shouldn't be this way, but it's very possible. Once they go over your file, they may just choose to go with the married couple. Worse than an hour, she called back and said, I really hate to tell you, but they went with one of the couples. Then a couple of months later, I got another call, and it was about a girl, and I won't say her name, but a girl who was 4 years old. And I was basically told that she would be available for adoption. So I said, yes, a 4-year-old, yes. And a month went by. Another month goes by. Another month goes by. Like, I am really, because all of this time, months are going by, and other children are becoming available in the system, and I'm not going to get calls because I'm waiting on this one social worker to get herself together. She said, let me call the social worker. She called the social worker, and the social worker said she was swamped and this was not a priority for her. And I basically said, okay then, unmatch me. And probably 2 weeks later, I got another call. And this one was for another HIV exposed child. And by then, I was just weary. And I was like, you know what? Let me hear it. And so she told me that the child was one of 4 or 5, that the grandfather was caring for the other ones. But this one he was not willing to take. I really considered it, but I had moments, this grandfather at any moment, he's already taking care of the others. Who says that he's not going to have a change of heart? Who says people aren't going to guilt him, and they probably would, into, well, you've taken all of these, how can you take this one and say you're not going to take care of it? So I said no. I said no. It went through my mind. It was like, I can't do that to my heart. I can't do that to my soul. And I can't do that to a child who would then, you know, have to deal with loss. So I said no. And then a couple of weeks after that, I got another call, and it was for a little girl who then was 10 months old. And I was told that the birth parents had some problems, but that she was on track, said that there were no other siblings, and that the child was available for adoption. Like, someone just laid this out for me, and this was on Valentine's Day of 2012. So mind you, I started this process in November with the PS map, or August with the information session, but in November of 2010, and it was now February of 2012. So it took that long to really get to this point. And I said, yes, I'll take her. Match me. And so we were matched. Her name was Trina. And so that was February. March came by, didn't hear anything. May came and went. June, at the end of June, I was like, you know what? I'm about to become unmatched again. And because I'm not putting up with this. And I called, just like, let me call the social worker again. And she called Trina's social worker. And the social worker said, and this was like June 30th, said, you know what? Have her come in July the 3rd. I went in July the 3rd. The social worker basically said they had one little picture of her, and she was adorable. She was so fat, chunky, and not much paperwork. And they basically were like, we need you to take her next week. And I was like, well, wait a minute. I was matched in February. You all have been holding off all this time. It is now July the 3rd, and you're telling me I need to take her next week. What gives? But I met Trina that day because the social worker, Trina's social worker, was like, the foster mother's going on vacation, and you need to take her next week, and that was the reason. And we can have you meet her today, but you need to tell us whether or not you're going to take her. It's like, whoa. But, you know, inside I was like, yes, I get to meet the baby. So we went over, I walked in. That baby was so fat. Oh, good lordy, she was fat, you know. And, but she was so cute. And these long eyelashes and this smile, and just precocious, I could see. There was a 2-year process from the time that she came into my home until she was legally adopted. So it was a journey. And then, of course, in total, Gabrielle has been with me for 4 years. And she is a joy. She is a lot. Again, there are days and mornings when I wake up or I'm in the middle of something and she's going and I'm like, how did I get here? I used to sit quietly and watch Lifetime cats and, you know, eat my sushi and just chill out on the sofa with a glass of wine. And I was fine. How did I get here? But I wouldn't trade it for anything. I would not trade her and being a mother to her for anything in the world. Yeah. So I will post, the next video will be Gabrielle's story. And I'll have pictures of her and when, you know, we had our first play date and really that whole process. So thanks for watching. So this is how I got here. This is what my situation is. I am a single mom. Again, single mom by choice, I don't know. It's just that, you know, if I had a choice of being with the wrong man or the choice of being by myself and being a parent, I chose to do it on my own. So, yeah. Got any questions about it? Any questions about the adoption process? If you're going through foster care, feel free to drop it down there. I'm happy to answer those questions if I can. Of course, I can only relate my experience in California. Every state is different, but I think most systems run relatively the same. Okay, so that's it. I am checking out, and I will see you guys in the next video. Thanks for watching, and subscribe. Yes, I gotta start saying that. Subscribe. Thanks. Bye.